So I thought, what better way to talk to you guys than just to yap? And I want to talk about Emily Henery. And funny story, which matches my new leggings from Cuba. Um, so I am not a romance girly, but I don't tend to read a lot of like contemporary romance novels. I love a book that has a subplot of romance. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, Veronica Speedwell, Most Cozy Mysteries. Um, unfortunately for me, the Sookie Stackhouse series. But just regular romance, contemporary romance, doesn't normally appeal to me. And there's a lot of discourse. There's been a lot of discourse online about like books getting popular and specifically like women not reading literature, and also a big discussion about like romance books being marketed properly, especially when it comes to like It Ends With Us, especially with the movie coming out. And I don't necessarily know if I want to add more to that like well researched or also like misogynistic discourse. I want to talk about like my own personal feelings when it comes to romance, and also probably unpacking some of my own internalized misogyny. It's I don't think that I am better than or smarter than or more of a reader than people who really just prefer romance. They just don't always do it for me. And one of the things I thought about for a long time is like I think it was just like I just know how that book is going to end because um, the couple ends up together. But that's so weird because I love old rom coms. I love like mystery books. Cozy mysteries are incredibly formulaic. I like those books, so there shouldn't be a reason why I like how it ends or I know how it ends is going to affect the story. I often also don't personally like the third act conflict in many movies, and especially romance books. Sometimes there's something very charged in that for me that I just don't tend to gravitate towards. It makes me, it like really affects me, right? It makes me feel very upset, especially when the third act conflict is like cheating or something very silly miscommunication wise. Um, but the other thing for me is that I just find a lot of books that have like characters in romance aren't fleshed out enough for me. I think is what it is because their main motivation seems to be falling in love. And while I totally understand people wanting to date people and feel like having the main motivation for people be that they want to fall in love is unrelatable to me and also doesn't create super dynamic characters. Um, but for me, this is this book series of romance books where romance is the primary plot line that I really enjoy, and that was the Lauren A Soulmate Equation and the True Love Experiment. And I think what is similar to that and the two Emily Henrys that I have read is that the characters feel like a really good rom com. Because when I think of rom coms, I don't really think of any like that I love. I think of When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail, Notting Hill, um, The Runaway Bride, not the one with the doctor, um, Mystic Pizza, these older ones, and I'm sure I'm forgetting them. French Kiss. If anybody, that movie is so hard to find. It's not anywhere streaming. You can't buy it on Amazon. Like to stream, you have to. I had to buy the DVD, and it's in like the smallest. It's like probably the size of like my camera on our TV. I think of all these older rom coms that wow probably don't super hold up if you don't have like nostalgia attached to them. They are for me better than some more modern rom-coms like 27 Dresses, and the one that like is constantly coming to mind when I was thinking about this video is this terrible one called Something Borrowed, because the characters are so unlikable and they're bad people, and even if somebody is a bad person, you should be rooting for them if they're the protagonist. I know that a lot of people talk about like he's an anti-hero character, but like you want to make somebody understandable, empathetic on some level, or you want to buy into like the route they're going down. Like when you think about like Breaking Bad, obviously Walter White becomes unlikable, but you're following this anti-hero's journey, right? But when you're watching a rom-com, you kind of want to be rooting for the main couple. And something that Avril and Andrew from Movie Bitches always say, and I've always thought about it, is the friends tell you so much more about the main character often in rom-coms. And this is an insult I've used at a person before. Like, there are so many poorly scripted, not well-rounded friends in rom-coms. Like, when I think about when Harry Met Sally, one of my all-time favorite rom-coms, I know it's not unique, it's not interesting, but I love that movie. I love the fall vibes. I love how New York is a character. I love Harry and Sally. I think about all the scenes they include in that movie of the people being with their friends and not just talking about their relationship, talking about them, talking about their memories, these Pictionary nights that they have. Baby baby fish mouth like is one of the funniest lines to me, and all those things are included in the movie to make you feel like Harry and Sally are both good friends, and they also have good friendships outside of this potential relationship or nothing or not relationship, like whatever it is. And when I think about a movie that absolutely to me missed every single mark it could have, it's Something Borrowed. That movie has a pretty large cast. John Krasinski is in it, Jennifer Goodwin, and this person who's also in 27 Dresses, I'm pretty sure. All of the people, and also Van from Reba's in that. I just remember that. All of the characters. What do these people? A main character who is in a lot of ways sympathetic. She's shy. She harbors this crush on somebody she doesn't think is good enough for her. But she has this terrible friend who has never seemed like a good friend. She seems like a terrible person, who somehow managed to like steal her crush. Such an insane thing. You cannot steal people from people. But also, then they have this like affair. But our main character is so. I say, if you haven't seen Something Borrowed, this interlude might feel just like I'm rambling. And I may never post this video, but our main character, Jennifer Goodwin's character, is friends with this woman. I should look up this actress's name. I feel so rude. She is boisterous and fun, and they've been friends for years, and they do all this stuff, and she's so selfish. Like, she as a character is selfish, but that doesn't justify what Jennifer Goodwin is doing. In addition to what Jennifer Goodwin... I can't even talk about Something Borrowed because it genuinely makes me mad. It's poorly written. It's poorly constructed. The actors are doing the best they can. I'm not trying to disparage this movie from like 2009 or anything. It's just when I think about these poorly constructed characters and this poorly constructed concept that doesn't instill any sympathy in me to Jennifer Goodwin's character, because she is so unsure of herself and so meek and so quiet. She cannot advocate for herself until she does something so shitty, and then she spills out all these things that her friends did that are terrible. And again, her friend is terrible. I think in the course of the movie, you find out that this woman, her best friend from childhood, like faked a Yale rejection letter to her so they wouldn't be apart. That's fucked up. You shouldn't be friends with this person, but you shouldn't have been friends with this person. And one person's right. Don't. And also, you didn't know about that. So, just be honest with yourself. And I feel I get that way. Or I think about, like, I used to make this joke about one of my old managers at my old job, that I felt as though he was, like, the second best friend in a rom-com movie. He has, like, 3 things he likes, and everything he talks about is those 3 things anytime he's on screen. Like, I genuinely felt like he was a pre-scripted, like, he likes golf, he likes Cheetos, and he likes action movies. Like, those were the 3 things he talked about all the time. He was such an, and I guess for a lot of people that's like NPC energy, but to me it's just like, it's honestly almost worse because it's like, I can't even imagine that he has this rich, full life because he doesn't ever talk about it at all, about anything else but these three pre-described things that he likes. And I think in a lot of rom-coms, and I think in a lot of romance novels, that's kind of what the vibe is. We have our main characters that have more personality traits. We have outlier friends that most of the time they're in the book is in service to the main character's search for love. And then there's like outlier friends that are just kind of there for a good time. And all of this is to say that I think Emily Henery does a really great job of creating a book that is a romance story. There is a happily ever after at the end of it. But the journey to get there, which is the thing that you like about rom-coms, and if you like romance, because that they talk about that in the True Love Experiment too, because the main character in that is a romance writer, and somebody kind of talks down to her to it, and she's like, look, just because there's a determined ending doesn't mean that the journey isn't the fun part. And they're absolutely right. Making me buy into their love, making me root for them is not a guaranteed thing. I, as the reader, get to determine that. If I know that the ending is they end up together for now or forever, then I have to be bought in 300 pages, in 400 pages, in 200 pages, and it's your job to craft the story that I buy into. And there's tropes and there's other things in all of that, of course. But you can mess up a lot then. If I'm not buying in to their relationship, or their relationship feels unearned to me, I get to say that. That's a totally fair criticism. And for me, Emily Henery, and to a lesser extent in this video, Christina Lauren in The Soulmate Equation, really makes me buy it. The Soulmate Equation and The True Love Experiment I enjoyed so much. They were books I could not put down. And same with Funny Story. And I also recently read Happy Place, like back in early March or April, again because of that video that never got posted because I was trying to do YouTuber faves, and my name is Marina said that she really enjoyed Happy Place, and I was kind of resident to listen to it, and I loved it. I think I listened to the whole thing in like a day and a half. And same with Funny Story. I started listening to this Tuesday before work, and it's Thursday, and I wanted to make this video, and I also wanted to go to a workout class this morning, and I said, no, I want to hang out in my house. I ran out of kind of chores to do that I was like planning to do today. I didn't want to run any errands. I wanted to sit on my couch and just listen to the book, because I was listening it to the audiobook. I've listened to both of them as audiobooks, and I really like them that way. I think she always picks fantastic narrators. So for me, when I think about these well-crafted stories that are messy, they include characters that are also tend to be in their late 20s, early 30s, which I think, as somebody in that time in my life, those are much more relatable characters to me. It's just fact of the matter. Like, I think I said this when I didn't want to read, I don't know, some book. I have a video about it when we were moving to Omaha. I was like, I cannot read any more books about 20-year-olds with ennui when they move to New York. Okay, I've moved past that point in my life. Okay, it's just, I don't like that anymore. And that's fine. So these characters that include messy people, people who are not in the best place in their life, or maybe have lived through stuff, who are not 22, is nice. It's refreshing. It's interesting. So I also want to delve a little bit more into Funny Story, because I've seen a lot of people who, I know people who seemingly liked Emily Henery prior did not love Happy Place, but a lot of people read Happy Place as her first book and really liked it, and they were not like the typical romance crowd, if I'm understanding the lore properly. And I fit into that category, and I gave Happy Place 4.5 stars. I just finished it before I started filming this video, so who knows if that will change. But for me, this is a 5-star read. But that also seems interesting because it seemed like a lot of people didn't love this one as much as Happy Place. But I love this one. So if anybody cares, I loved this one. Now I think part of that has to do with, there is very much new girl vibes with this. But Not a ton. I mean, I think that more than anything, Miles gives off Nick energy, but um, he's a lot less of a caricature than Nick is. And I don't really feel like Daphne gives off like super Jess energy. She's not super quirky. She's like definitely into reading and like stuff like that, but I really sympathize with her. But I wanna this will be spoilers, so I don't wanna make anybody watch something that isn't spoilers. This is always pitched this way, that Daphne and Miles end up living together because Daphne's fiance Peter leaves her for Miles's girlfriend Petra on his bachelor party. At his bachelor party, they were long-term childhood best friends. She always was like, I guess I can't be jealous of this beautiful, nice, long-term friendship. And then on the bachelor party, he comes home to their house and is like, yeah, you can leave. You need to be out by the end of these 2 weeks. And so they end up living together. And at first, he's definitely very different than her. He definitely has kind of like a mysterious job. I think what Emily Henery does really well is create people that are complicated and have their own behaviors of dealing with stuff informed by their childhood that isn't really trauma. Um, or like abuse or anything. I think sometimes when you read romance to make something more dramatic, they go, I have this terrible history, so that the characters feel a little bit more damaged and more sympathetic. But I think what is so much more realistic, as somebody who moved in with my partner, who got married to my partner, is understanding patterns of how you deal with things based on how you grew up, good or bad, but what the unspoken or spoken rules in your house were, and how that affects your life as an adult. Because I had lived with roommates. I had lived with roommates all through college, and also like flatmate or like apartment mates. And I moved in with my two closest friends out of college, and I think we had a great time living together. We're not roommates anymore because we don't like each other. We still talk and text and see each other, probably more when, but we see each other. But when I moved in with my partner, I think more so than when you live with roommates, right? Because everything's kind of mushing together. You have relationships and patterns that you're ingrained on, like, this is how I handle stuff. And you are a little bit more fully that when you're with your partner than you are with your, like, friends. And then you add on with your partner now that you're living together. And I think everybody has an idea of what that looks like, and it looks different. And you realize you might handle conflict different and problems different. And a lot of that's because people grew up differently, and nobody's life is perfect, but not everybody's life is terrible. And you have to work through those things as adults. So, it's pretty upfront. Pretty upfront that Daphne had a dad that was pretty sporadically there. She has a lot of anxiety around people not showing up and putting in too much hope for people. Kind of like a predetermined idea, right? That people will disappoint you, and it's up to you to prove me wrong. And if you disappoint me, I will no longer trust you ever, and I'm kind of writing you off. She also moved around a lot, and so she's a pretty insular person. And we find out through the book, especially through the first half, how much she just slotted her life into her fiance's. How much of her life became his friends, his family, his wants, his desires, his house, and realizing that she maybe doesn't know herself as much as she thinks she does. She has these predetermined patterns, and that's it. And she starts to make a friend at work. And that person is outside of Peter. That person is outside of Miles. That person is just a person she knows that is her friend. And they talk a lot about that. And I think that that's a really hard thing to do. Get absorbed into each other. You just started dating. Everything's so romantic. And you need to pull apart from that person, you need to go, it's been great, this kind of cocoon we've built, but I need to see my friends. I need to see the clubs and the hobbies I'm passionate about. I need to go do the things that I like to do. And I think sometimes people don't pull themselves out soon enough. And then they get hurt, or they realize, like, oh, it's been so long since I called my friends. Maybe they don't want to be there. Maybe, and the thing is, like, you hurt people unintentionally, intentionally. We are not perfect humans. It's important to recognize, hey, like, sorry I haven't been around. I've been really self-absorbed recently. Like, what's up with you? How can I, you know, yeah. It's okay to, like, foster a new relationship. It's okay to foster an existing relationship, but it's also okay to have your own feelings, and it's also okay to not get that balance perfectly. And that's kind of the thing that Daphne learns throughout the story is, and that's kind of her journey, is that she wants to be with Miles. Like, they end up together. But she also wants to be her own person outside of Miles, which is not necessarily something she did with Peter, not because she didn't have a personality, but because she just was trying so hard to fit and didn't even realize how hard she was fitting. Miles has, like, a bit of a different thing. It seems like he grew up with a mother who was just really chaotic and unpredictable feelings and emotionally, and would change on whims, and also was obsessed with her image and made him feel like he didn't know himself and what was right and what was wrong, and couldn't trust himself. And he's dealing with that. And he is a little bit unreliable. He has flights of fantasy and whimsy, and he's always trying his best, but sometimes he's not being as communicative as he could. He definitely came from a home, and he talks about that, where, like, saying how I felt didn't matter, because my feelings didn't matter, and I, was a child, and I couldn't get sick, or I couldn't be hurt, or I couldn't have, this go wrong if it upset how my mom wanted to be and wanted to present us. And, I think that some people might read those books and be like, that these things aren't bad enough, but they're so much more realistic to people. I think they're so much more realistic to, like, how people feel and how people's childhood, like, traumas feed into each other, and they're so much more on brand for average people and dealing and unpacking the relationships you have with the places you grew up. I really want to advocate that option, and I'm not here to take away anybody else's story. I'm just saying that, to me, it feels like less of a gimmick that these two had terrible, awful childhoods, unimaginable pain, and they just had childhoods that were imperfect, and they have complicated relationships with their families, and they, like, Miles is no contact, and why that works for him, and I think it's really great to see, someone's like, yeah, it wasn't, I had to get out of there, I had to fend for myself. I don't want to sound dismissive of people who have experienced really terrible things. I'm not trying to say that. I just feel like, to be honest with you, when you read a book and kind of out of nowhere this person's like, yeah, I'm really shitty, but this terrible, awful, unimaginable thing happened to me. And it's like, okay, well, now I feel like in a book, sometimes in books it's, like, used to just be god-awful, and it's not always managed well, and it's, I don't know, is that good? I mean, like, is that good? I'm not saying it always is, but it feels almost gimmicky to me, versus, like, these things seem like more realistic, everyday things that have informed how you exist in the world. Finally, maybe that doesn't spoil too much. I do want to spoil two things. One, I think Peter is a class act douche. I find Petra to be less of a bad person in this story. I think he really is a very perfect person to himself, and he is trying so hard to control everything. He's not really in the book very often, but you find out these things, and not control in, like, a terrible, like, you can't wear that kind of way, but just controlling his surroundings at all times. The other thing I will say is this. There's a part in the book where Daphne's, like, main friend from college starts dating her ex-fiance's best friend. And, after the big blow up of like 3 months before a wedding at your bachelor party, breaking up with your fiance, and getting together with your long-term best friend. If that happened to me, I don't think I would care who my partner was or their partner was. I would expect my friend to, at the very least, at the very beginning, be on my side. No questions asked. It's her and Cooper aren't taking sides. And I think that's a shitty thing to do. It gets resolved. They build that relationship somewhat back at the end, but I think that there are sometimes situations where people go, the best thing to do is to not take a side, or to be, I'm trying to be nice, I don't want to hurt their feelings. And I think when you end up doing that, you end up hurting people more. And spending most of your life, or a good portion of your life, or your entire life, trying to control the narrative around you that you were the nice guy always is insane. And I think that that's what we see less so with Sadie, her friend in this book, but where she was just like, we're just not going to pick a side. That's fair, right? And it's like, no, I was obviously the person that was wronged in this scenario. You have to pick my side. Or just pick his side. But not picking a side and still being friends with this person immediately after, that is in fact picking his side. I hope you know that. Like, I would have said that. And that friendship probably never would have recovered, because I would have said it so quickly out of anger. I'm not saying I'm doing the right thing always. I'm just saying, and I think you see that with Peter as well, where he's, like, there's a point where the whole reason they start fake dating in this book really is to Petra and Peter, is so that, because they get invited to their wedding, which is insane behavior. Insane behavior, let me tell you that. They send out wedding invitations to Miles and Daphne. And so they RSVP yes after a drunken night. Like, this is when they kind of are starting being friends, right? And Peter calls and is like, why are you coming? I don't want you to be alone. And Daphne's like, well, I'm dating Miles, so I won't be alone. And he seems so perturbed that they RSVP'd yes. And it's one of those things just like, what I would have said in this situation is, why did you invite me? Did you not think that this was going to happen? Do you think that you got points for inviting me after you blew up my life? You think that inviting me to the wedding is a good thing? Like, I wouldn't invite somebody if I did that to them. Absolutely not. I don't need to invite you. And if you sent me an RSVP, that means 100% yes is a totally acceptable answer. Is it psychotic? Maybe. But it's not that psychotic because you sent the RSVP. And I think he really is trying to be, like, always on damage control. And so I might edit some of that part out. But what I really enjoy about Emily Henery's romance books is they are imperfect in terms of, like, the characters, the situations, the dealing with problems. I feel like she doesn't do tropes that I dislike, so it's never like third act conflict is a miscommunication. I misunderstood your vague text message. I feel like that doesn't happen. Her characters are also showing growth. They're a little bit older, which just for me works better. And I really enjoy them. So I don't think I want to read Emily Henery's backlog, actually. I just want to read whatever she publishes next. I'm an Emily Henery girly. And again, this is going to be my thumbnail. We match. We match. We match. And that's really important for me. I'm not going to the noon class, let me tell you that, little people. Now, do I try to be unhinged and sign up for a Friday class at 5:30? Oh, it's a line too. That would be so nice to go to after work on Friday. I mean, I probably won't be able to, but it would be so nice too, you know? I work for the first time ever like 9 to 5 on Friday, and I normally work 10 to 6 or 11 to 7, normally 11 to 7. And I don't believe for a second that I'm going to be able to leave that store at 5. That never happens. That's when we get busy, especially on Fridays. But I'm not going to go to a class today because I didn't want to because I was reading Emily Henery. So if you are somebody who is like, I don't normally like romance, maybe I won't like Emily Henery, I really like her characters. I think they are lived in. I think they make sense. I also really like her voice, like the way she describes stuff. The way she describes love feeling is so visceral. As somebody who's been in love. And yeah. But I think it's definitely worth a read or a listen. I would definitely recommend the audiobook. The audiobook is free in your Spotify Premium. So I've already used my hours, I'm pretty sure, for October. But that's fine. Because I'm